Hi, this lab is on making use of raw XML format data, to send NETCONF, request, to the CSR1 KV. Before we actually start, the lab, you need to ensure that your CSR1 KV is actually started and running. So make sure that you have actually started your VMware, CSR1 KV, and do a show IP interface brief, to check what is the IP addresses to use, in order to send the request, to your CSR 1000V. And in this case, you can see that the IP address is 192.168.220.129. Let's minimize the VMware, so that it's in the background. So you can see that for part one, basically, is you can actually either make use of PuTTY as SSH client to connect, to the CSR1 KV using NetConf services, or you can actually make use of PowerShell, which is default on Windows OSs. So I'm going to make use of PowerShell for today, lab itself. So you can just search for PowerShell, Windows PowerShell, run it. So you can see that I'm going to start with start PowerShell and type SSH Cisco at 192.168.220.129 as what we have found for the address that has been auto configured on the CSR1 KV through DHCP. So basically going to type SSH Cisco, which is the user that has been pre-created on the CSR1 KV 192.168.220.129. So remember to replace the IP address with the IP addresses that you have found on your instances of your CS1 KV. -P, port, which is the software port that is going to be used for the NetConf services, which in this case will be port 830. Press enter. It will ask you whether do you want to continue. Type yes. So the password is basically Cisco 123 exclamation mark. So once you have actually connected to the CS1 KV using the NetConf services, you'll find, as mentioned here, after successful login, you see the server hello messages with formatted list of supported YARN model capabilities. So all these are basically the YARN model capabilities. And you can see that the XML formatted messages always end with square bracket, arrow sign, square bracket, arrow sign, which indicate the end of the messages as indicated here. So in order to start our NetConf session, we will need to actually send our own hello message in the response. Do a copy, ensure that you copy the whole block inclusive of the end of the messages. Copy. So for PowerShell, you once you actually right click on your mouse, you are actually pasting whatever you have copied earlier. So you can see that I'm going to just right click, and you can see that it actually acknowledge that I've actually sent a hello messages to the CSR1 KV. So you can see that you actually replied me with the NetConf base 1.0 capability itself, as I mentioned here. So after client hello message is sent, the NetConf session is basically ready to process RPC messages. So basically we can actually send this message to see what is the outcome. You can see that basically we are actually trying to request for the information of IETF interfaces, which is to find out the interfaces that you can find on the CSR1 KV. I'm going to copy, go back to the PowerShell, right click. So you can see that once I send out the message to find out what are the interfaces that is available on CSR1 KV, it actually replied me that with an interface that can be found on the CSR1 KV. But basically it is very difficult for human to actually read this XML formatted data. okay, which we're going to in later lab going to make use, okay, of Python capabilities to actually make use of additional library, okay, to make it more human readable. Okay, so in order to end or to close the NetConf session with the CSR1KB, we are going to send the end messages, okay, which is the last block. So you can see here, okay, basically there's a closed session. Okay, so I'm going to send the message, and you can see that I've actually successfully terminated, okay, the session with the CSR1KB. And basically that is how you can make use of raw NetConf, okay, for, XML formatted data to communicate, okay, with, okay, the CSR1KB. Okay, but for normal usage, normally you actually make use of scripting or coding to actually communicate with the CSR1KB using